Hello everyone! We are a group 5 and today we're gonna discuss our topic, rabies. And I am Suzette Alto.
And I am Chanel A. Cristobal.
And I am Maria Cristina Cabarla.
And I'm Marjel A. Dilapin.
And I am Cherry Amrap Singh.
And I am Edelberto T. Bilan.
I'm Kathleen R. Benny.
Introduction. Rabies is an acute neurological disease caused by virus. Rhabdoviridae that attacks the CNS or the central nervous system. Causes an alternating symptoms to depression and agitation and almost invariably leads to extreme type of violent behavior and death. Zoonotic or animals to human. Immune fluorescent antibody test is the best method for rapid diagnosis test for rabies. An acute virus disease of the nervous system of mammals that is caused by a rhabdovirus or species rabies virus of a genus Lysovirus. Usually transmitted through the bite of a rabid animal, and that is characterized typically by increased salivation, abnormal behavior, and eventual paralysis and death when untreated.
The history of rabies. For thousands of years, rabies has terrified civilizations ever since it became obvious that the bite of a rabid animal ensures an inevitably horrible death. The origin of the word rabies is either from the Sanskrit rabas or to do violence, or in the Latin rabir, to rage. The ancient Greek called rabies lysa, or violence. Today, the virus causing rabies is classified in the genus Lysovirus. In India, 3000 BC, the god of death was attended by a dog as the emissary of death. In modern day, in India, rabid dogs still cause the death of 20,000 people each year. The first written record of the rabies causing death in dogs and humans is found in the Mosaic Smyrna Code of Babylon in 2300 BC, where Babylonians had to pay a fine if their dogs transmitted rabies for another person. In the 1st century AD, the Roman scholar Celsus correctly suggested that rabies was transmitted by the saliva of the biting animals. He incorrectly suggested a cure for rabies by holding the victim underwater. Those that didn't drown died of rabies. Other barbaric cures for rabies included burning the woods with a hot poker and the hair of the dog. Homeopathic medicines invokes the use of similars like cures like hairs of the rabid dogs were laid on the wound or ingested by the patient, while the hair of the dog may cure a hangover. It did nothing to cure rabies.
The rabies virus causes a rabies infection. The virus is sprayed through the saliva of infected animals. Infected animals can spread the virus by biting another animal or a person. In rare case, rabies can be spread when infected saliva gets into an open wound or the mucous membranes, such as the mouth or eyes.
Factor. The overview. The most potent risk factor for the development of rabies is a bite from an injected animal. People that live in an area or travel to an area that has a large incidence for rabies are at a high risk for acquiring rabies from a rabid animal. Handling certain wild animals such as bats or raccoons will put a person at a higher risk. The following are the risk factor for the rabies. First, bite from infected animals. Exposure to urine or other secretions of infected animals. Organ transplant from infected donors. The following individuals may have a higher risk of contracting rabies from the general population, or international travelers, animals control officers, spectators, lab workers. Injuries to the head and neck region with open wounds may facilitate quicker transmission to the virus of the brain.
Transmission. Rabies virus is transmitted through direct contact, such as through broken skin or mucous membranes in the eyes, nose, or mouth, with saliva or brain nervous system tissue from an infected animal, People usually get rabies from the bite of a rabid animal.
Diagnosis. A diagnosis of rabies can be made after detection of rabies virus from any part of the affected brain. But in order to rule out rabies, the test must include tissue from at least 2 locations in the brain. Preferably the brainstem and cerebellum. The test requires that the animal be euthanized. The test itself takes 2 hours, but it takes time to remove the brain samples from an animal suspected of having rabies and to ship these samples to a test public health or veterinary diagnostic laboratory for diagnosis. In the United States, the result of a rabies test are typically available within 24 to 72 hours after an animal is collected and euthanized. Because rabies exposure to suspect animals is a medical urgency, but not an emergency. Testing within this period is more than adequate for determining if a person was exposed to a rabid animal and requires rabies post-exposure vaccinations. Approximately 120,000 animals or more are tested for rabies each year in the United States, and approximately 6% are found to be rabid. The proportion of positive animals depends largely on the species of animals and ranges from greater than 1% in domestic animals to less than 10% of wildlife species. Based on routine public health surveillance and pathogenesis studies, we have learned that it is not necessary to euthanize and test all animals that bite or otherwise potentially expose a person to rabies. For animals with a low probability of rabies, such as dogs, cats, and ferrets, observation period it's 10 days. May be appropriate to rule out the risk of potential human rabies exposure. Consultation with a local or state health officials following a potential exposure can help determine the best course of actions based on current public health recommendations. Diagnosis in humans. Several tests are necessary to diagnose a rabies ante-mortem or before death in humans. No single test is sufficient. Tests are performed on samples of saliva, serum, spinal fluid, and skin biopsies of hair follicles at the nape of the neck. Saliva can be tested by virus isolation or reverse transcription followed by polymerase chain reaction. Serum and spinal fluid are tested for antibodies to rabies virus. Skin biopsy specimens are examined for rabies antigen in the cutaneous nerves at the base of hair follicles.
Treatment of rabies. Once a rabies infection is established, there is no effective treatment. Though a small number of people have survived rabies, the disease usually causes death. For the reason, if you think you've been exposed to rabies, you must get a series of shots to prevent the infection from taking hold.
Prevention of rabies. Tips to prevent rabies. Keep vaccination current at all times. Keep dogs and cats under control. Animal control law prohibits allowing animals to roam unsupervised. Roaming pets are more likely to have been exposed to rabies than those supervised by their owners.
That's the end of our discussion. Once again, we are Group 5. Thank you so much. Hello, good morning.
Good afternoon.
Walang sa
Hello, everyone. Everyone, today we gonna get this. And I wala pa ba? So that is the end of our topic. Thank you so much.
Once
That's the end of our discussion.
Masabi ka sana para may
Ano na gani nag-ano nagay ko sa
Once again,
That's
That's the end.
That's the end.